Awesome. Well, obviously, we've had some really good summer workouts. I'm excited about our new roster. The majority of them were able to be here throughout the summer workouts, but just really excited about the fact that they truly fit our system. They fit the dribble drive. They're able to get downhill, shoot the three, really have bought into our system, our culture, and what we're trying to do here. Just excited about our future and what we're trying to build. I thought like I said, we had a really good group of true freshmen. We have a really, we had the two returners and then we have the portal players. And so just excited about how they really gelled and meshed, their chemistry, their excitement, their work ethic over the summer. Really excited about what they were able to do in the amount of time that we had. And also like mixing up our defense. So I hired Coach D, and she's going to be my defensive coordinator. So for her to be able to help take over our defense and make those changes defensively, we had offensive practices and defensive practices, and then we had some combined, and just really excited about what our players were able to do, and what they were able to learn. But like I said, the biggest thing is their energy, their effort, their grit, the way they worked hard every day, and I thought that they really did bring it on a regular basis.
Ethan,
Hey, Kelsey. Just first of all, I just wanted to ask, I know you touched on summer workouts and kind of how they've gone, but what stands out most about this year, the group you have, maybe compared to this time last year? What's a little bit different?
I think that they really did start to understand the dribble drive. The one thing is it is a system. It does take time. So just in the short amount of time that we had, because summer seems to fly by. I feel like the older I get, the faster it goes. I don't know what's happening, but just the fact that they were really able to, start to figure things out, share the basketball, get to the right spots, but they can really score off the bounce to the rim. And they're starting to really understand that spacing and that timing of the offense. And then obviously changing our entire defense for them to be able to pick up a lot of that so quickly and so early. I think that's going to help us once we get them back here in August and get ready to really implement and go full steam ahead.
Yeah, it's keeping on the defensive note. Coach Jackson Durrett, obviously, she was a new hire you made, and she's spearheading a lot of the defense. Just what stands out about her coaching style? In the short amount of time that you've gotten to coach with her. I know you coached against her, especially while you were at Oral Roberts too.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is on both sides of the basketball, holding them to a higher standard. Our expectations have risen, and so holding them accountable, doing things right, and if not, we redo it. You might get a down and back or whatever that might be, but the standard is the standard, and holding them to that, and helping them understand our defensive principles. It's lengthy, we got through as much as we could, and we'll obviously hit all of those points again, but keep adding to. But I think really just helping to force the issue. We want to play aggressive on both sides of the basketball. I thought last year we tried to be aggressive offensively and we played containment defense. We want to be aggressive on both sides of the basketball, and I think that will really help us.
Also, want to touch on this 5-year eligibility that's now a thing. Just how does that change recruiting for you and maybe roster strategy moving forward?
You know, Obviously it changes a lot of things, but there's still a lot of unknowns. Waiting to see how those players perform, waiting to see how they develop in your system, making sure that they do want to be retained. We're not going to stop recruiting freshmen. I think that that's important for the base and for the future to have some longevity within a program. So we're really excited about our potential 2027 class. But obviously the 5-for-5 is going to change some things. We're going to, at this point, I feel like you have to take it a little bit year by year, because of all the different changes and how it's going to be impactful. And so really focusing on this 2027 class. And then once season is over, we'll be able to, really assess where we're at, who's coming back, and, what we need in the portal.
Said you're not going to stop recruiting freshmen. I know that's probably not the strategy that every coach will take. What makes it important to you?
I think it's important for the longevity of your program to have players who potentially want to be a 4-year kid that you can really rely upon, that wants to be, because I think fans want to have faces of a program. It's hard to get to know players when they're in and out each and every year. But if we can get some players who want to be here, who want to grow within the system, who want to grow within our program, and really see the, potentially leave a legacy, if we can get a couple of players to do that, I think the fans will also rally and buy into that as well.
Sweet. I have more, but I'll hop in at the end.
Dudley.
Hey, Coach, first of all, I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
Second, I know that over the course of many years, changes have happened during the summer about how much time you're allowed to be around and what you're allowed to do. What are y'all allowed and how much time during the summer these years, and how does that help?
I definitely think it helps. I think it helps with some camaraderie. I think everyone can approach it different. Some teams, in the past, I've brought teams in super early. As soon as, June gets here, we brought some in the middle of June, some later at the end of July. So being in the Division I realm, like there are some different time frames. But you get 8 weeks is your max, and you get 8 hours a week. You have obviously they get the weekends off. So just really utilizing that time, I think, for some camaraderie too. One thing we did was what we called a family time, kind of taking some time to get to know our players on a deeper level, trying to build that camaraderie, build that chemistry, and then implement. Because we do run a system, we don't run a ton of sets. So implementing our offensive system because our defense has been totally revamped and changed, implementing some of the defensive strategies as well. And I think it will help us because we have a little bit of a head start. I think that's the one great thing about the summer is you can kind of build a base in the weight room, a little bit of conditioning and then a lot of drill work, drilling what you want them to learn and understand. We're giving them a little break right now because I think it's important that they come back a little bit anxious and hungry and rested, so we can really, hit the ground running in August when school starts.
Also, recruiting wise, obviously you came in the first year, had to go get a lot of people to build a team. The same this year. What did you look for when you were out on the recruiting trail and portal transfers to kind of mold the team you want this year?
I think the biggest thing is obviously when I got hired in that first season, I still didn't have a staff. We were trying to, the portal was about to open. It was just fast and furious. I felt like this year we've been more intentional, very detailed. We've been recruiting some of these freshmen for an entire season. We watched them all last summer. We were able to get some of these 2026s, build that relationship, build that foundation. And then in the portal, we started watching film before our season was even over. You don't know who's going in and who's not, but you can always watch film. And even if that kid doesn't go in, you can watch film on anybody. And so really trying to be as tedious and disciplined and, like I said, really being intentional in who we're trying to get once that portal opened. But doing our legwork and doing a bunch of background work, I think was very important in making sure we tried to find the right pieces to the very best of our ability in a very fast and furious portal.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else before we go back to Ethan? All right, Ethan.
I think
Oh,
Anthony.
Anthony.
Yeah, hey Kelsey, hope you're doing well. You mentioned it a little bit there, but I guess just how much more, I guess, settled in do you feel kind of going into year two? And I guess just what were the biggest, I guess, takeaways for you kind of coming out of year one?
I think that it's always a learning curve in your first year when you're trying to build and revamp. I think one thing is by the second season being, like I said, intentional, getting the players that truly fit the dribble drive, who really want to be Razorbacks, who want to be here, who want to be coached hard, who want the opportunity to play in the SEC and help us to take it to the next level. Obviously, where we're at is not where we want to be. And, I think that making sure that we recruited the players who truly fit the system was probably the biggest factor in this recruiting class from the 2026s and especially out of the portal.
And then talking about, the roster that you guys have constructed, I guess just what were, I guess, the key attributes you were looking for to make sure that you were getting, players who were going to be, I guess, prepared to play in the SEC, and I guess just where do you feel like they stand just kind of as at this moment?
Like I said, players who fit the system, it's the offensive system is a 1 through 5. So making sure we had a one who could be a floor general, a two that can really get downhill, We had to have shooters that can, knock down shots once we do break down the defense, but really forcing the issue at the rim, sharing the basketball, someone who could, protect the rim, who can guard. But we also like our bigs to kind of be mismatched in the fact that they could step out and shoot it a little bit. So trying to find some of those mismatched players, but also players who want the smoke of the SEC. It's not for the faint of heart. It's tedious. It's a gauntlet each and every night. And so, making sure players were prepared for the fact that, do you want that smoke? Do you want to be in the SEC? Do you want, there's very minimal room for error. And so players who wanted to embrace that, who wanted to elevate their game, and who wanted to be a part of a rebuild and doing something special.
And then obviously Usha and Emily are the two returners. I guess just obviously Usha didn't get to play last season, but where have you kind of seen those two kind of make the biggest jumps, biggest strides as they kind of head into year two at Arkansas?
I think, Emily knows my offense, knows my system so well. Just her really having the opportunity to help our players that are coming in. I love the fact that they're receptive too. They know that she knows, and they take her input, and they're really trying to fix things. So I think having an extra voice on the floor is always a good thing. And she knows what to expect in the SEC. In your first year, people can tell you, you can watch film, you can watch all the games you want, but until you're actually in the mix on the floor day in and day out, night in and night out, you don't fully understand. And she does now, and I think she can help us get that point across. Ushi still isn't fully released from her injury. She should be released shortly, but she has been able to start doing non-contact. And so that's been really nice for her to be back out on the floor, and being able to go through as part of the warm up, some of the non-contact drills. It's been really nice to have her back out there. She always brings the energy. She's always such a good teammate. And she's moving really well right now.
Ethan?
Hey, Kelsey. Year one for you, your previous two stops, they also, were difficult with just losing more than you have, in other years of your career. How do you think that you handled that in year one, just not having the success that, obviously at Oral Roberts in your last 2 years, y'all were winning a lot of games. Just how did you handle that personally, kind of not performing how you had been in recent years?
It's never easy. Whenever you've done a rebuild before, this obviously, like you mentioned, it's not my first time. After you've built it, you tend to forget what it was like. But just like I tell my team all the time, you go through hard things in life. There are a lot of hard things, hard moments in your life. Once you get through it, you try to forget about the dark moments, the hard moments. You try to push that away because you want to think about all the good things. And I think being in that, I just had to remind myself, like, I've been here before. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. I hate losing more than I like winning, so it's not fun at all. I hate it. But I understand that there's a process, and most things aren't instantaneous. If you go back and you look at other successful programs, very few of them just started out winning. They had to build something too. And so just kind of reminding myself to stay the course, even on hard days, even on bad days, to stay the course. I always say if it were easy, everyone would do it. I tell my players all the time, mental is to physical is 4:1. So I think just, keeping my mind right and staying the course and helping them understand that there's got to be a buy-in. You got to build it, and you got to do things the right way if you want it to withstand the test of time.
Yeah, and in both of those previous two rebuilds, you increased your win total in year two by 9 games, and both times. Just do you see any similarities right now, in your first full offseason here, maybe how it feels compared to those stops whenever you finally had just your first full year to regroup and enter a second season?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, there's always similarities. There's obviously differences, but there are some similarities. Whenever in that second season, you're able to get, you've had more time to recruit. You've had more time to be meticulous. You've had more time to be intentional, to bring the right players that fit, your system, what you're trying to do. And I feel like we're at that point. And each year we've got to continue to do that. But right now in this year too, I felt like we've done a good job of taking year two rebuild, bringing in the right portal players, getting the right high school players, and then the retainment. And I think Emily will be huge for us. This will be her fourth season to play for me, And so I think that that's one thing that speaks volumes when a player is willing to leave and travel with you and take, go to the next spot, but stay even through a rough season. All we done at ORU while she was there was win. Um, and that's all she's done for her entire career in high school and whatnot. So I know it's not easy on anyone when you don't win at the level in which you're used to or you want to. And so I really think that that grit and that grind will really be seen in this second season.
And then obviously it's no secret in today's era to build that, roster going into the next year, resources are a huge part. Do you feel like y'all are in a better place resource wise for recruiting than y'all were whenever you first arrived?
Yeah, I definitely think we are. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but at this point, we are definitely in a better spot than we were. I believe that, and I think it's going to continue to grow. We have to put a good product on the floor. We have to continue to build our fan base, and then when we're able to do that, and they see the product we're putting on the floor, they're able to build relationships with our players. I think that support is also going to continue to grow, and it's going to be necessary for the stability and the growth of our program. But it's definitely much better, and we're excited about our future and where we're going.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of people, saw that Amber Shirey left for a job at Farmington. She was a longtime fixture for the program. Just what were those conversations like with her departure?
I mean, I'll be honest, tears were shed. It was hard on everyone. I know it was hard on her and it was hard on us. I love Coach Shy. She's one of the greats. She's a legend. I don't think there was anyone that ever came on campus that we weren't making sure they knew who she was and what she had done. She is one of the greats, and you know, she probably thought about leaving multiple times, and I was just grateful that she stayed and helped me get through my first season and in this transition. And I know that being able to be around her kids, being able to watch her own children play, basketball, and then obviously Reed still plays softball too, and really good at both sports. And so to be able to watch her kids more, I don't blame her. I'm a mom. I understand that. And so she's not going to be far. We still talk to her. We'll still, she's always willing to help. She bleeds Razorback red, and she's the GOAT. She's the legend, and the utmost respect and appreciation for everything Coach Shy has done. And I know she'll continue to support us.
I got a few more. Just Kateri Poole, what stood out about recruiting her and your relationship, getting to know her throughout that process, and now coaching her in the
I think experience is the first thing that's going to come to mind when you think about Kateri. So the experience that she has, what she's learned in the longevity of her career at a couple of different stops, obviously, I think that helps us. She's vocal on the court. And so just I think having that experience, that presence on the floor that knows exactly what we need. And then the relationship we've been able to build, I think that's been really special. I think she really fully knows that we genuinely care about her. And the way my style of coaching is probably different than the next person's, which is totally fine, to each his own. But we have a really good relationship. I'm excited about what she's going to be able to do, and the fact that she can really lead and she can help us. And I'm just excited. Her finale needs to be phenomenal. She deserves that.
Yeah. And whenever y'all were recruiting players like her and other transfers that came in, I guess, what was that process like with the scouting? What type of analytics did y'all use maybe to help out with figuring out if players were truly fits for your system?
The one thing is, the front office has done a really good job of partnering with us. So we spent a lot of time with our front office. Obviously, they help deal with a lot of the financial piece, but Dylan on their staff he's the analytics, and so we made our own scale. And so once kids win in the portal, then you're able to pull them up, and you could put them on our scale, which is different. We knew what we needed for our system for us to be potentially successful. And so we put them into our own scale, our own system, our own analytic breakdown. And that was that piece was able to help us see how they fit compared to other players, maybe within the league, maybe within the position. And so I think that was very helpful. And then again, watching film, we used our own criteria, our own breakdown, our own scale, that when it maybe fit someone else's system, someone else's program at all, it was directly rating for our team, our program. And I think that that specific legwork, that extra work we did really has paid off. And I think it will continue in the future.
All right, last one I got. Just you haven't had all of them this summer. Your forwards, but your team doesn't have maybe the 6'5" and above, forward centers that a lot of SEC teams have. Just what makes you confident in your system that you can compete in the conference at a high level, with maybe undersized bigs, both offensively and defensively?
You know, there were some games we were in last year. I don't think the final score did our team justice in some games, and in most games we were outmatched. I think we've elevated our skill, we've elevated um, players who truly fit the system. And I think that's what's really going to pay off, even though we might still be outmatched by, a couple of inches here and there. I think overall, what we've been able to do to bring in players again who truly fit the system, I think it will really be able to play dividends. And because we're going to be more aggressive on the defensive end, I think that will pay off as well. So, I think the fit is very important. Having all things in alignment is very important, and I think that it will be able to pay off at a higher rate when that happens. And I think we do have some more height overall, but just like you said, we don't have the 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". But at the same time, we have players who truly fit the dribble drive, who truly fit our system, and I think they're going to be able to perform at a very high rate and really help us elevate our game.
Yeah, if I can follow up really quick, just on that same note, the stretch, like your offense has a lot of stretch forwards. What is it about those bigs that can shoot a little bit that work well in your specific system?
I think because we have to have that mismatch player at that 4 spot who can shoot it, quick release, and then but can also get downhill. They've got to be able to facilitate, be a good passer. You got to be able to read and react within this offense, and I think that we've really elevated that. Our players can really read and react and do a good job, and are starting to play off of each other. Initially, it's almost like they get a little paralyzed for a split second because there's so much information. We drill it over and over. If this attack happens, this is the movement. If this attack happens, but then once they start to release that and not overthink it and start reading and reacting, it becomes such a beautiful thing. And then it's like, oh, that's what coach is talking about. It's like the light bulb comes on. And so in those moments, I think they're starting to really embrace it. But having that player who can do both at that, forward spot is really imperative for our offense to be successful. They can guard a guard, but they could guard a big. They've got to, we might be a little undersized, but toughness, grit, and not making excuses has to matter. And that's one thing this team is going to be able to do.
All right, Coach, thanks.